The year 1927 was some of the worst and some of the best times. I'm going to focus on a few events of 1927 that caught everyone's attention. This year in history included records set by sports legend Babe Ruth in opening of the Roxy Theater, a turning point in entertainment, and a major upgrade in automobile transportation in the creation of the Model T Ford. Sit back, relax, and take yourself back to 1927, a year when you would pay $1.25 for a steak sandwich, $15.85 for a man's three-piece suit, and $72.50 for a console radio. I am going to discuss a few key points that have made an impact in history and will still be remembered today. Baseball was used during the 1927 period. Many records were broke by Babe Ruth, the New York Yankees pitcher and outfielder who had an historic season. He was a huge part of performing the excitement of baseball and turning baseball into what it is today. He was called the Sultan of SWAT, the Babe, the Home Run King, and the Great Bambino. In 1927, Babe set a new home run record of 60 home runs that would stand for 34 years. During his time with the Yankees, Babe increased people's love for baseball. Prior to joining the team, the Yankees had never won a title of any kind. During his span, they won 7 pennants and 4 World Series titles. Babe and his buddy Lou Gehrig, who won the AL MVP that year, and was the Yankees' dominant first baseman, are the reason the team is still considered the best team in baseball history today. In 1927, the Yankees season was so successful and so consistent that the same 25 guys who started the season on the roster finished the season on the same roster throughout the whole year. The average player on the team was 27 years old and ended the season with a total payroll of $250,000. The players had various backgrounds outside of baseball. The team consisted of meat cutters, painters, artists, writers, singers, pianists, carpenters, and many more skilled laborers. Not only did the accomplishments of Babe Ruth and the Yankees leave an impact on history, the entertainment industry provided significant contributions. On March 11, 1927, the Roxy Theater opened up on the streets of Times Square. It suddenly became one of the most impressive movie palaces ever built and was called the Cathedral of Motion Picture. The Grand Theater seated 5,920 people, staffed 300, and cost a whopping $12 million to build. The theater was known for its lavish stage shows, high-end service, and female dancers called the Roxyettes. This palace-like theme, multi-tiered theater was the largest in the world at the time and was the finest of its kind. Imagine walking into the lobby known as the Grand Foyer, which featured the world's largest oval rug, then walking into the theater and seeing a pipe organ rise from the orchestra. The theater was run and operated by Samuel Rothafel, also known as Roxy. He was appointed by Herbert Lubin to fix up the theater to royal taste and transform it into a theme that nobody could compare. After the first theater was finished, Sam planned to open 6 more theaters in the New York area. Sadly, he ended up going bankrupt, which led to the dream idea being shut down. As you can tell, entertainment was huge during the 1927 period, but the accomplishments in the transportation industry were just as noteworthy. Charles Lindbergh was a historical standout in the U.S. history. Charles did what nobody had successfully done before May 20th, 1927. At 25 years old, he was the first person to fly nonstop from New York to Paris in a single-seat, single-engine airplane called the Spirit of St. Louis. Prior to Lindbergh's attempt, 6 pilots had already lost their lives in the attempt to complete what he had done. His flight was brutal with the weather conditions, which is the reason Lindbergh ended up winning the Ortiz Prize. As a U.S. Army Corps Reserve officer, he also was awarded the Medal of Honor for his historic exploit after the attacks of Pearl Harbor. He became active in the war effort, working with Henry Ford on bombers and acting as an advisor and test pilot for the United Aircrafts. Henry Ford created the most popular automobile in the history. On May 26, 1927, Ford watched his 15th million and last Model T Ford in a factory in Highland Park, Michigan. The Model T was most commonly bought by the middle-class Americans because of its efficient fabrication and affordable prices. In 1927, a Model T was worth $360. In the international poll, the Model T was voted the world's most influential car of the 20th century. On December 2nd, 1927, Ford came out with the Model A, which had speed, style, flexibility, and control in traffic. A Model A offered major upgrades that the Model T didn't have. During the first 2 weeks, the automaker accumulated 400,000 sales orders from dealers. Overall, the Model T and Model A Ford cars will always be remembered as a major turning point in transportation in U.S. history. Baseball being one of the world's most popular sports during 1927 and the time following, entertainment industry taking a big leap forward, and transportation changing rapidly are all signs that the United States was in major growth and change during this period in time. We can all look back during these years and remember the people and places that make up this time in history. Dating back from 1927, when Babe Ruth hit his 60th home run, to the last Model T cruising through the assembly line, to the economic struggle during this time, was just the beginning that would eventually lead to the formation of the Great Depression that would change America's way of life. All these events have shaped the way things are done today in exciting times in the history.